Will this dinky little thing solve your overheating camera issues? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. This is the Ulanzi camera fan version 2. They have actually released a version 1 which was attached to your camera using suction cups, which didn't work apparently. I read loads of reviews and watched loads of videos, and the suction cups just kept failing. It would come with a thermal kind of thing that you'd stick onto the back of your camera, and then you would just suck that onto the back of your camera, and then that should solve the issue. But it kept falling off. So they've made a version 2, and that's what this is. A few months ago, I made an overheating test video about the Sony a6700, and a lot of the people that watched that video commented saying, I need to get this fan by Ulanzi. And at the time, I don't actually think version 2 was available. More recently, I did a 6-month review of this camera, and again, a lot of you have commented saying, get this fan, but make sure you get the version 2. And I was debating it for a while, and in the video I said, shall I get the fan, shall I not? Well, I've got the fan, I've got it. So I know I have this in my hands right now, but let's go back and unbox it. I must say this thing is very, very well made. It's completely metal, and you charge it via a USB-C port. You do get a USB-C cable in the box as well. So Ulanzi has obviously heard a lot of people complaining about the first version of this fan, and they've realized that it didn't really work. So they've completely redesigned how you attach it to your camera. And it's really clever actually. It's just using these springs. You basically just wedge it into the camera, and then there's a tiny little hook at the back which kind of hooks it into place. And this thing doesn't shift. Once it's on the camera, it stays on the camera. I shook it a lot and it stayed on. I did actually manage to get it to fall off once, and that's literally because I was going mental. I kind of set myself the goal to try and get it to come off. And I also wanted to test and see how much movement would get it to fall off, and it's a ridiculous amount. You wouldn't actually do that in the real world unless your camera like fell over. But yeah, you're not going to be going mental. I was shaking it and it stayed on. It was really, really good. There's a little screen on this fan where you can see things like what mode you're in and also the temperature of your camera, which I thought was really wicked. So there's 2 modes. One is just a slower fan, and then number 2 is the faster fan, the more noisy one. So I guess if you're in a really hot place, then you'd put it on setting 2, or if you're shooting at 120 frames per second or maybe even 50, you would also put it on 2. So this is what the noise of setting 1 sounds like. And this is what setting 2 sounds like. Bear in mind, these are literally about 2 inches away from a shotgun microphone. So, you know, that's like not how it's going to sound. I've put it on the back of the camera now, just so we can kind of get an idea. I've also got my light, which has a fan on as well. So, you know, this is with no noise cancellation. And this is with background noise reduction. So it's not too much of an issue. I don't even really know if you guys can hear it. I guess I'll find out in the edit. I'm just going to quickly go over some key points about this fan. So the charging time from 0% battery to 100% battery was around an hour. So if you have the fan on setting 1 constantly, it would last around 1 hour and 15 minutes. And then if you have it on setting 2 constantly, it would last around 55 minutes. But it's worth mentioning you can charge the fan whilst using it, which is what I did during these tests that we're going to go into in a second. So we're going to put this fan to the test, and the camera I'm using for this test is the Sony a6700. A lot of my viewers who watch this channel regularly will know that is my main camera, and I have actually done a full review of this camera, so click the card if you are interested. But it is common knowledge that this camera does have overheating issues. It is such an incredible camera, but the overheating side of things does let it down a lot. And I was kind of hoping this fan would solve those issues, maybe turning it into kind of like an FX30, but obviously it's not the complete same because of the dual card slots and all of those things. But if this fan does solve the overheating issues, then it turns this camera into an absolute bombshell. Like it's just, no, bombshell's a bad word, bombshell. It turns this camera into an absolute masterpiece. We'll go with masterpiece, sure. So for this test, I recorded with and without the fan for 25 frames per second, 60 frames per second, and 120 frames per second. That way we can just see the impact that the fan is having on the camera. Every time the camera did overheat, I put it in the fridge for like half an hour, so it was completely cool, and then I would go again with the fan, and then so on and so forth. All of the footage was recorded at 4K 422 10-bit S-Log3. So let's get into the results. 25 frames per second with no fan lasted 1 hour, 14 minutes and 42 seconds. That's not that good. Then I went again with the fan, 25 frames per second. It lasted 1 hour, 45 minutes and 51 seconds. It filled up the card. It didn't run out of battery. It didn't overheat. It just filled up the card. So I just figured that was pretty good. There was no overheating. It didn't even give me the temperature warning sign. It was just completely, I think it was at a solid like 28 degrees Celsius on the back of the little screen. So, it's not too bad. I think the camera overheats at around 31 degrees Celsius. So it was really warm still, but it didn't even want to warn me about it, which is really good. But yeah, let's move on to 60 frames per second with no fan. That lasted 23 minutes and 10 seconds, which isn't very good. And with the fan, 60 frames per second, it lasted 46 minutes and 19 seconds, which isn't as good as I thought it was going to be, but it's still double the time, which is great. It did actually overheat, but it did last a lot longer. I do think if I had left it in the fridge for maybe an hour, if the time would be different, it probably would. But anyway, that's what I got. If you are enjoying this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. According to my analytics, a lot of the viewers that watch this channel aren't actually subscribed. So if you do like the content, if you are finding it useful, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, if you want to see more content from me, then feel free to follow my socials, links in the description. That's where I post all of my short form content. And lastly, we have 120 frames per second with no fan. That lasted 9 minutes and 42 seconds, which isn't good, but also I would never record 120 frames per second for 10 minutes. That's just not something that I would do. So it's fine for me, but it's just what it gave me. And with the fan, it lasted 18 minutes and 55 seconds. What on earth are people filming for that long? Doesn't matter, but that's just the result. So there you go. This one did also overheat, but it did last a lot longer. It is quite interesting because a lot of the videos I've seen, all of their timings are all different. So I guess it maybe depends on which one you have, which camera you have. But yeah, so that's for the A6700. Another cool thing about this fan is that it's compatible with a lot of cameras. I'll put a little thing here of the cameras that it's compatible with from their website. So have a look, yours might be in this section. So do I think this fan is worth buying? 100% yes. Does it solve all the overheating issues that you could ever imagine? No. The A6700 did still overheat twice, but it did last a lot longer. And part of me thinks maybe if I'd left it for longer than half an hour, it might not have overheated. So I don't know. But in my personal opinion, it's worth buying, but it doesn't solve the issue 100%. We're maybe talking like 75 to 80%. Let's just say it will make me a lot less stressed when I bring it to commercial shoots. But ultimately, I guess it's up to you. It's a preference on what you think you need for your camera. Will it let you record for longer? Yes, 100% it will. So if you are having issues, then maybe consider looking into it. There is a link in the description. I hope you found this video useful. I hope you found it enjoyable. Have a great rest of your day or evening, and I'll see you in the next video.